Behind. Let's go, huh? Let's go.
And welcome, everyone, to the first official episode of the Bolts and Colts podcast. This is Brian Latendry here, as always, with Mr. Brian Riley. How are you tonight, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, not too bad. We got week one under our belts, and we're going to get into the specific games that we care about and people who may be listening to this show care about in a few minutes. But it's good to have football back, man.
It is good to have football back. Yeah, man, it seems like it's a little bit more of a normalcy thing for me anyways, like coming in and just watching the game on a Sunday, relaxing and just enjoying the day like you were able to last year. It's great to have football back.
There is definitely a routine I'm not in the Thursday routine yet, by the way, and we're recording this on Friday, so I only caught bits and pieces of the game last night between the Browns and the Bengals, but for Sundays, for sure, there is a routine that I have. It is sort of it's kind of my one sacred day of the week. And that's really all I ask of my family is that, hey, like on Sundays, just expect that I'm going to watch football on Sundays during football season. Like that's my one thing. Like Saturday, we do whatever we want. There's like tomorrow we get basketball games going on. We get stuff going on. Yep. Saturdays, crazy. Fridays are always crazy. The work week is crazy. But when football season starts, and football is that one sport to me that you can do that with, because I'm a huge baseball fan, basketball fan, obviously. And that stuff there's games every other day, that kind of stuff. But football, even with the Thursday games, it's a Sunday sport. And so I plan my weekend around, I get up early, I have my coffee, I watch the pregame shows, I adjust my fantasy football lineup 15 times before the game starts that day. And then you settle in, and even though I'm forced to watch the Patriots most weekends, and a lot of times I'm forced to watch the Giants as well, which is really not so much a punishment anymore, because I think they got a good young core there, but just being on the couch watching the games, such a great feeling. So I'm with you. It's a sense of normalcy. Now, after the first weekend's games, did you have give me sort of one overall thought, your takeaway from last weekend's games? What did you think of the football overall that you saw?
Oh man, listen, it was weird to watch a game without fans. Like that, obviously, I think for everybody. But I thought the TV crews did a great job with their angles, with their noise, and not showing the empty stadiums. I thought they did a great job. I thought the play was sloppy. Obviously, everyone's behind. You have these older quarterbacks like a Phillip Rivers, which we're going to talk about, who he threw for 363 yards, I think. He threw 2 picks.
That is correct, sir.
Yeah, he didn't look bad, but he didn't look like he was ready to play the way Phillip Rivers can play. And I think that has a lot to do with those 4 games that he would have had before the season. He's a vet. That arm, man, I know he's been throwing in practice, but the arm, especially on an older quarterback, it takes a long time, especially game reps, to get that timing down, to get the strength back. You can throw a million times in the offseason. It's just not the same. So I thought overall, sloppy play. Aaron Rodgers, we called it last week. He came out firing, looked fantastic.
Yep,
Joe Burrow
I think that's what you can expect from him this year. He's pissed.
I do too. He's pissed,
and he wants to make it painful for Green Bay.
Yep.
And so look out. And I actually picked up, at the very end, we'll just talk fantasy real quick, but I did pick up one of their wide receivers this week for my fantasy team, just because it looks like he's about to turn the clock back a little bit.
I agree.
Put up some big
MVP type numbers he'll put up this year with Mahomes. I thought Roethlisberger played well. But again, overall, sloppy play, and they're a little bit behind. Those were my 2 big takeaways from the entire weekend. No really big surprises, except for the Colts getting handled by the Jaguars.
Yeah, we're going to get into that in a second. But let's start with so obviously Bolts and Colts podcast. We're going to start with the Bolts here. And we're going to start with this game specifically because I think there's less to talk about in this game than I think there is with the Colts game. The Colts game is fascinating to me. So I listened to both of these games on the radio because I have Game Pass, and then I watched them both the playbacks of both games, and I really kind of threw down some notes and stuff like that. Here's the thing. I sort of pulled 3 stats that told the story of this game to me. So make of this what you will. Tyrod Taylor, the starting quarterback for the Los Angeles Chargers, was 16 of 30 for 208 yards, no touchdowns, but no interceptions. That's my first stat that I think tells the game of this story. The second stat that I think tells the game of this story is the Bengals' final drive was 14 plays, 84 yards in 3 minutes, but they missed a 31-yard field goal to, it might have even been a 21-yard field goal.
It was a 21, I think, yeah.
They missed a chip shot because the kicker, it looked like pulled his calf muscle and shanked it. But that drive, I want to come back to in a second. And then the third stat that I think tells the story is the fact that the Bengals turned the ball over twice and the Chargers turned the ball over 0 times.
Yeah.
Now, anyone looking at the Chargers this season and looking at why Tyrod Taylor is starting as opposed to Justin Herbert, one of the biggest reasons that keeps bubbling up in every discussion is you know what you're getting with Tyrod Taylor, and he's a guy that doesn't turn the ball over a lot. And so the Chargers have really put a premium, especially in justifying why they let Phillip Rivers go, that not turning the ball over is a big deal, and that's what they're really going to focus on this year. So we knew going in that they were going to be a little bit conservative in their play calling because they want to stick to that mantra of, they got a good defense, let the defense do its job, almost the Chicago Bears sort of thing, and just kind of don't turn the ball over. And I guess from that point of view, it worked, right? Tyrod Taylor did not turn the ball over. However, Tyrod Taylor did not throw the ball well in this game at all. And 16 of 30 is not great to begin with. 208 yards, that, if you watch the film of that game, that actually seems high because it seems like he had about 37 yards passing in that particular game. It was absolutely brutal to watch. And as someone who has had to watch the Jets a lot over the years and some bad Giants teams and the Bill, it was rough watching Tyrod Taylor play. And what I noticed of him is he seemed to be very careful about not wanting to throw an interception. And so he always aired high or high and away. He always threw the ball to a place where half the time it was just uncatchable. The timing was off, but definitely a lot of high balls, and he had Mike Williams out there who looked like he was doing an acrobatics routine. I mean, he made some incredible catches. He would have less completions had it not been for Mike Williams, who just really, coming off a shoulder injury, looked great, I thought, out there. So the offense as a whole, to me, and Shane Steichen is their offensive coordinator, his game plan was god-awful. I mean, it was basically just don't turn the ball over. And I don't know. It's going from watching Phillip Rivers to watching this team play offense last week was rough.
Look, I hear you. But again, this is kind of why I'm here with you. I have to kind of calm you down. Because, yes, I absolutely agree with what you're saying. But we talked about it last week. Tyrod Taylor, he's a game manager. He's not going to win you a game. He's not going to lose you a game. Look what Phillip Rivers did. Look what Tom Brady did last week. They threw key interceptions at key times to cost their team the victory. So when you have Tyrod Taylor managing that clock, yeah, he was overthrowing. He was only putting it in spots where potentially his guy was the only guy that's going to catch it. He would rather have it not be intercepted because they were playing the Bengals and they knew this was like their first game. It was a preseason game. They have to win this game against the Bengals because if you lose this game to the Bengals, it's going to bite your ass down the road. So I think he played it conservatively because he knew his defense was going to win it. Running game was going to win it. They were going to control the clock. And I think they went into that game with a game plan of just winning that game. Don't do anything stupid to blow this game for us like a Phillip Rivers did. Because now the Colts are behind the Jaguars. And that's going to come back at the end of the year and bite them, Brian. I'm telling you.
I know you're itching to talk about that, and we're going to get into that in a minute. But a few more things I want to hit on about this Chargers game is I do agree with you. Like, granted, you got to take 1 week at a time, right? They didn't need to go out on this past Sunday and prove that their offense was one of the best offenses in the NFL, right?
Absolutely.
They went out there to run the ball first, and overall they ran the ball fairly well. Now, what they didn't do well, which is something the Chargers always struggle with, is they did not do well in short yardage situations. They cannot, and this as a former offensive lineman is absolutely infuriating to me, and it'll come up in the Colts game as well. If you cannot get 1 to 2 yards on a third or fourth down by sheer willpower and just imposing your will on the other team's line, I have no place for that. There should be no problem in getting a third down, a 3rd and 1, a 4th and 1, a 4th and 2. That destroys me when I see teams struggle like that. And there was a point where the Chargers could have put the game away in the fourth quarter, and they failed on a short yard conversion. There's a few times during the game where they failed on short yard conversions, which absolutely hurt them and cost them scoring opportunities. So, but to go back to your point, like the idea of just managing the game and just not turning the ball over and letting the defense take over, that works when the defense is continuing to be aggressive. But I mentioned that final drive where the Bengals went 14 plays, 84 yards in 3 minutes and missed a chip shot field goal that would have sent the game to overtime. Now, granted, they almost scored a touchdown, and there was an offensive pass interference call that, while I will take it, and you could certainly justify the call, that's a 50-50 call at best, and they could have awarded the touchdown to the Bengals, and the Chargers would have lost that game. And that is what would have happened every year prior to this one, because that's just the way the Chargers are. They will lose that game 9 times out of 10. This time the call went their way. The shanked field goal went their way. They end up coming out with a victory. But the problem was as soon as the defense let up on the gas pedal, because in the first half, they were all over Joe Burrow, all over him. They were getting up the field, hitting him. Bosa was after him. They were just knocking him around, and they were making him run for his life, and he just couldn't find his footing. In the second half, things started to open up, and in that last drive, they played way too soft, trying not to give up the big play, and they almost lost the game. And so if you're going to do the thing where you have Tyrod Taylor managing the game and just you're playing real conservative on offense, then that defense has to be aggressive every single play out there, because as soon as they let up, then you got guys carving them up. And Joe Burrow, like you and I talked about in the last game, he's the real deal. He already, last night again, in the game against the Browns, he's already making throws. He's already doing everything he can do to try to put his team in a position to win. He's going to continue to make some rookie mistakes, but that kid, I'm glad we caught him early, because there's big things coming from him down the road for sure.
He threw it 61 times last night,
which is a little much for your franchise quarterback who's a rookie.
You can't have your rookie quarterback throwing 61 times. No way.
No, you can't even have him throwing 41 times a game.
No.
You got to dial that. You got to cut that in half. You got to cut that to about 30. But here's the thing, and they have Mixon, who's a good running back, and the Chargers did a great job in this first game of really holding Mixon in check and causing a fumble, which is something that he rarely does, which was really, really good. But that's a lot to put on Burrow to expect him. Now, granted, he almost came back and beat the Chargers, and he certainly looked good in points last night as well. But 61 times a game, you're going to burn that kid out real quick.
Real quick. Yep, absolutely.
What else do I want to say about this Chargers game? I mentioned last week that I thought Kenneth Murray, their rookie linebacker, was going to have a pretty big impact on the game. He had 4 tackles and 4 assists, which is a pretty decent game. I do think he impacted the game just because of the energy that he brings out there, but I think there's a lot more to come from him. My standout for in terms of the rookie class, Joshua Kelly from UCLA, their rookie running back. He had 12 carries for 60 yards and a touchdown. And with Justin Jackson hurt again this week, I think you're going to see Josh Kelly step up big in this Chiefs game coming up. So he looked really good. They lost another marquee player, Drew Tranquill, broken leg, out for the season. in this game, out for the season. Bosa got hurt in this game. He hurt his triceps, but over the course of the week, he seems to be better, so he should be good to go for this weekend. But their center, Mike Pouncey, who did not play in this first game, we found out this week needs hip surgery. He's out for the season. So they've lost Derwin James. They've lost their Pro Bowl center. They've lost their starting linebacker. This is classic Chargers curse that comes up every year as far as them losing like absolute, critical pieces of their team for this year. And we'll just see if they can put it together. Now, the other bright spot for me, I thought overall, other than the short yardage situations, was their offensive line, who is patchwork, actually did a pretty good job of protecting Tyrod Taylor and of run blocking in this game. So, I mean, overall, they're 1-0. We will take it. It's like you said, this was a game they absolutely needed to win. It's not a game that I'm convinced they deserve to win, but a win is a win. And the true test for them comes this week. They are playing the Kansas City Chiefs. We saw what the Chiefs did on opening night. If they come into this Chiefs game with an offensive game plan like they had for the Bengals, they are going to get beat by 50 in this game. I agree. And that scares the shit out of me because, and here's the other thing though, their defense is going to get run ragged in this game. The only way the Chargers have a chance in this game is for them to lead with the run. And that's why I think Kelly needs to have a big game. Obviously, Austin Eckler, is a good running back. He's going to have a good game. They need to get him more active in the passing game, but they're going to need to run the ball, control the clock, but make some big plays downfield to open up that defense. And they're going to have to control the clock because if they don't, they're just going to get – I mean, the thing about the Chiefs offense is it's capable of being a vertical offense, and it's capable of being the Patriots offense where it's death by 1,000 cuts. They will kill you whatever way you give them. And I just you cannot put that pressure on the defense in this game. The offense has to step up against the Chiefs or it's going to get ugly fast.
Yeah, they all have to play their perfect game. Tyrod Taylor, you'll see this week, Brian. I think if Tyrod Taylor plays the way he did last week, they're going to get blown out. You're right. You nailed it right on the head. But I do think he's going to take more chances. He's going to take it deep a little bit more. And he's gonna have to play a great game. He's gonna have to take more chances. He's gonna be a little bit more risky. And he's gonna have to throw some touchdown passes for this team to beat the Chiefs.
Okay. Now let's talk about the Colts because I don't like what I'm hearing from the Colts fandom. All right. Now I'm new to the Colts fandom. I'm new to following Colts fans on social media. But here's what I don't like coming out of this first game. First of all, the Colts lose to the Jaguars 27-20. And we could break down some different series in this game that really cost them the game and some overall trends for the game. I'm going to hit you with a few stats, and then we're going to dive into it. Stats that tell the story of this game. You mentioned it up front, but Phillip Rivers, 36 of 46 for 363 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. That's Phillip Rivers' line.
Right. There should have been 3 interceptions. Like that penalty he had on his third, like it was either way. Like it was a penalty, but like he threw 3 picks. He didn't look good. The Colts didn't look good. Their defense looked like.
I'm going to disagree with you on Phillip Rivers, but let's come back to that. Okay, let me give you your other stats because there's some other people here that I think carry more weight for this loss than Phillip Rivers does, and specifically the next guy I'm going to mention, T.Y. Hilton. 4 catches on 9 targets for 53 yards and 2 absolutely critical drops in the final drive of the fourth quarter. Absolutely critical drops. Now, we'll come back to that too. The third stat I want to throw at you, Gardner Minshew, 19 of 20 for 173 yards and 3 touchdowns. 19 of 20. Now, why does this not make sense to me? Because I was led to believe that the Indianapolis Colts have not only an NFL caliber defense, one that should be playing in the league in the NFL, but also a defense that is supposed to be considered good. I'm confused because it looked to me like the defense for the Colts was playing against Joe Montana, was playing against Steve Young in his prime, was playing against a young Tom Brady with his first couple of Super Bowls under his belt. They made Gardner Minshew look like the best quarterback in the NFL this week.
And he has zero weapons around him, Bry. He looked fantastic. That's the scary thing.
I thought I saw you out there catching passes from Gardner Minshew. That's tell you, I'm telling you right now. So how is the Colts defense not the story coming out of this game? Because all I've heard about is Phillip Rivers. But the Colts defense was absolutely horrendous in this game. It was god awful against Gardner Minshew.
Against Gardner, yes, it was horrible. But when you also break it down, they only put up 20 points, man. Like, it was an overall massive failure on both sides of the ball, including special teams, with Rodrigo missing an easy kick. They did not play well. And when you're missing those easy kicks, it's taking your team out of that rhythm, man. And it's like, all right, we just lost 3 points. We can come back and get a touchdown. Like, they played horribly.
They got no pressure on him. They got no pressure on Minshew. And so he was able to just absolutely pick that secondary apart.
Yep.
But you mentioned that they only scored 20 points, right? So let's dive into a couple of things. And I also want to dispel something really quickly. Now, Phillip Rivers' completion percentage for the game on Sunday was 78.3. I saw several, I don't know if they're Colts fans or not, I saw several people mention on social media the words Jacoby Brissett after this game.
I don't even want to hear about it. Okay. I don't even want to hear about it.
Well, that's good, because I'm going to tell you why you don't want to hear about that, okay? Phillip Rivers threw for 363 yards in that game. Do you know how many times that Jacoby Brissett threw for 350 yards or more last year?
I would tell you zero.
Zero. You're absolutely right. Do you know how many times he threw for 300 yards or more? I believe it was 3. His highest total
2 or 3
last
times.
year. Yeah, his highest total last year was 319 yards. Do you know how many times last year that Jacoby Brissett had a completion percentage that was as good or better than Phillip Rivers' 78.3%?
Zero.
He had it one time, and it was the time where he exited the game after injuring himself because he started 4 for 5 for 59 yards against the Steelers, and he was completing at 80% and then left the game. So the game that he got injured, he hit 80%. The closest he came was 77.8 the rest of the season, and he frequently was in the low 60s and low 50s for completion percentage. So I just want to put that out there for anyone that is uttering the words Jacoby Brissett after Rivers has a couple of picks in his first game. That's not even a conversation that we're going to entertain unless Phillip Rivers starts throwing numbers that are anywhere comparable to what we saw from Jacoby Brissett last year.
Right. I can guarantee you that's not a conversation we're going to have at all this year. Okay. It should not be. It's not going to be. I obviously have been a Colt fan longer than you. So this whole Jacoby Brissett fandom has come from when Andrew left. We got Brissett from the Patriots, and we all thought he was like the chosen one. Not me, but the majority of the Colts fans. It's the same fans that were booing Andrew Luck when he announced his retirement. The shitbag fans. I'm sorry, the shitbaggers. I cannot stand it when we compare our greats to Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett, solid backup quarterback. He's not a starting NFL quarterback. I'm sorry. Your numbers completely confirm that for me.
Yeah.
So let's relax.
We will hear none of that.
No, none of that. I will listen to me. I'm telling you today, I will not say we need a quarterback change. Phillip Rivers, older guy, new team. Chemistry's not there. They played the Jags. They should have wiped the Jags out, and they didn't. Let's see how they react today. I'm with you on T.Y. Hilton. T.Y. Hilton's been getting old, man. I think it's time for Paris Campbell's time. I think it's Paris Campbell's time to shine.
I think you're right. And I think Paris Campbell looked really good and made some really good catches in this game. Pittman didn't get enough of a look, I don't think. And unfortunately, Pittman, it looks like, is dealing with an injury, because I was just looking today. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. And I believe it may be a toe that he is dealing with. Let's see. Michael Pittman Jr., questionable with a toe injury. Now, Jack Doyle, the
He's
tight
out.
end, he is out this week. So that's two weapons that definitely Rivers will be without one of them. Now, that means that obviously the balls for TY are going to be even more this week. And, yeah, so, I think that overall, and again, I don't know enough about T.Y. Hilton, but he is their number one, right? So I just expect that in those situations where it's fourth quarter, you're driving to potentially, tie the game at that point in time, you got to make those catches. You got to make those catches, and both of those were catchable balls, and he didn't come down with them. And both of them would have been first downs. The first one that he dropped would have got them to about the 12-yard line. So that's rough, right? Rivers interceptions. Let's talk about Rivers interceptions. So the first interception that Rivers throws was into double coverage. And that's classic Phillip Rivers. And I mean classic Phillip Rivers. That is as Phillip Rivers of a Phillip Rivers interception as you're going to see from Phillip Rivers. And I'm kind of glad that he did that right out of the gate, because here's the thing. You're going to get, I don't think he'll throw 20 picks like he threw last year. That was a lot that he threw last year. But you're going to get picks like the one that he threw in that first quarter for sure.
Yep.
You're absolutely going to get those picks. You are absolutely going to get those picks because he still thinks, and I'm sorry, it was the second quarter, but he still thinks that that's a needle he can thread. And I forget what he said about it after the game. Maybe he didn't see the guy in the coverage or something like that. But that is, to me, a classic, job of Rivers forcing the ball into a situation he has no business throwing that ball in. Now, the second interception, which came in the fourth quarter and arguably was more damning. Now, granted, there was 10 points that came out of these interceptions, so they were definitely costly. Of course, part of that is due to the fact that the defense didn't really show up on Sunday, but that second interception, I don't know. I felt like maybe it's a 50-50 sort of ball. To me, that was one where I felt like the defender fought for it more and came away with the ball there. I didn't feel like the receiver came back to the ball. Again, this was intended for Campbell. I didn't feel like Campbell came back to the ball at all. I felt like he was just kind of in the way.
He was there.
He was there as Wingard, grabbed it and intercepted it there. So, I mean, I don't know. Neither one of them are good interceptions. But outside of those, and I know there was another one that didn't end up, being an interception. But first of all, let's talk about that first drive. 7 plays, 63 yards, 7-0 Colts. We are in business. They're running, they're passing. Rivers just throwing a lot of great passes to the outside. Just good stuff all the way down. The second drive that they have, they end up turning the ball over on downs because it is a 4th and 1 and they can't get a yard. That to me is absolutely brutal. And this is, again, something that the Chargers did in their game as well. They turn the ball over on downs. I don't mind them having the faith in the team to get a 4th and 1. They're at the Jacksonville 3 and they turn the ball over on downs. I mean, you got to get that.
You got to get it. You have to go for it. That was the right call. And I was driving up north, so I did not see that play. Yep. And if you can help me out here, but I'm assuming you just got to get it behind Quentin Nelson and get that 1 yard. If you can't get 1 yard behind that line, something's wrong.
Well, and that's the thing is I felt like that line didn't. I mean, the one thing I felt like they did a great job of, I felt like overall the pass protection was good for Rivers. Obviously, he's not a mobile quarterback. He will step up into the pocket. He will take some hits. He took a brutal hit and delivered a great pass. I think it was to Campbell on a 3rd down that he just got doubled over, but hung in there and fired that ball. So I thought the pass protection was pretty good. Overall, I mean, Marlon Mack, getting hurt was huge for them. Although Hines played well for them, and he was the one that actually scored that first touchdown there. It's the short yardage stuff, dude. It's the short yardage stuff where you got to be able to just impose your will on the other team and make that first down happen.
Yeah.
So anyways, they turn the ball over. It's still 7-0 at that point, and then the Jags come back and score. But then the following drive, they go 75 yards in 11 plays with 6 minutes in 6 minutes total, and they double them up. So now it's 14-7. So we're looking okay. There was a 35-yard pass by Rivers to Taylor, and he ended up getting 35 yards on that. So we're in good shape there. But then they allow the Jags to come right back and tie it. Then they go up by a field goal, and so we're up 17-14 at the half. And that was one, I think that field goal was one where Rivers threw a short pass to Hines, but I want to say that the tight end might have been open on that one. There was one play where I remember Rivers talking about it after the game where if he had made a different read, there was a touchdown, and he ended up throwing short in that. And so I think they might have cost themselves some extra points there. But they go into the half up 17-14. At that point, overall, despite the interception that happened earlier, offense playing pretty good.
Yeah. Whole team's playing pretty good. They got
First
the
half
lead.
of football, you got the
First
lead
half,
going
14
in.
points. Yeah, not bad.
Then you come out in the second half and you force a punt from the Jags. So now we got the ball back and we're in business. We go 64 yards, but miss a field goal. So now you have an opportunity to extend the lead. You miss the field goal. We trade back field goals back and forth. Jags kick a field goal. We kick a field goal. Now it's 2017, but then the touchdown. And that's where you got Minshew passing 22 yards to Cole for a touchdown. And then on the next drive, you have Rivers throwing that costly interception. That to me, the dagger, because it's a momentum killer.
Yep, it killed it.
Yeah, you're moving the ball. You've traded field goals. You had missed a field goal earlier, but you had gone 64 yards. So they're moving the ball. I think they had over 400 yards of offense in this game. Like, they're moving the ball in this game. It's just those critical errors at critical times. So that interception, a minute and a half, they have the ball. They turn the ball over, interception, and then, of course, hold the Jags to a field goal. 27-20. We get the ball back with a little under 3 minutes left. And we go 34 yards. And then we turn it over on downs. And it was those two critical drops by Hilton that, now granted, the game shouldn't be on his shoulders at that point in time, but they had a 2nd and 5. They're at the Jacksonville 26. They had a 2nd and 5. Rivers hits Hilton on a pass that should have been a completion all the way down to like the 12-yard line. He drops it. That's with a minute left. Then they try one for Campbell, which I thought that ball was catchable. It was a little bit ahead of Campbell, but I didn't think it was ridiculously ahead of him. I thought that he should have given that ball more of a chance than he did. And then Rivers passes to Hilton on 4th and 5, Jacksonville 26. They turn it over on downs, and that's pretty much the game. So the narrative coming out of the game is that it's Rivers' interceptions that cost them the game. But I think that masks two things. Number one is that overall, he had 360 yards passing. He completed 78% of his passes. Yes, he made a couple of critical throwing errors. I don't think he's going to make 2 of those every single game. But at the same time, to me, the story of this game is the inability of the Colts defense to stop the Jags and Gardner Minshew, who went 19 of 20.
Which is ridiculous. And you're right. That's a stupid number.
It's a
stupid number for anyone. But when you tell me, like, when you ask me, hey, like, what quarterback will go 19 for 20? He's the last guy I would say, isn't he go 19 for 20 against the Colts defense? Like, you're right, Brian. Colts defense crushed us that game. We should have put more points up on the board, but we didn't. But we also made Gardner Minshew look, like you said, Joe Montana. So as a Colt fan, I was devastated. I could not believe we lost to the Jags.
And
However,
you lose Marlon Mack for the season.
we lost Mack for the season, but we still got Stewart, which I think is going to be okay. Like, I believe in Frank Reich. I believe that we're gonna figure this out. And this game that we have coming up on Sunday is going to be tough, but it's the first week. Just like I told you, don't panic. We still have the easiest schedule in the league. It's just one game, and we still have some pretty strong veterans on both sides of the ball. We just got to figure it out, protect it, and then we're going to be okay. Minnesota is going to be a tough game. It's going to be a war. But
well,
again,
I agree with you, actually. And I feel like coming out of week one, even though the Colts lost and the Chargers won, I actually feel more confident about the Colts' future moving forward than I do about the Chargers' future moving forward. Because the Chargers are going into a game against the Chiefs that, I'll say this. If the Chargers beat the Chiefs, that could rewrite the story of this season for them. Because the confidence boost that would be coming out of that game is going to make Tyrod Taylor feel like he can do anything, and is going to make that defense even more hyped up than they were before. If they can somehow, and I think if they can cause a few turnovers and things go their way and they can control the clock, Chargers may have a chance. They are an 8.5 point underdog in that game. An 8.5 point underdog in that game. No one thinks that they are beating the Kansas City Chiefs this week. So that would shock the world if they beat the Chiefs. And from what I saw of their offense, I'm concerned about the pressure that defense is going to be under for the rest of the season to win games for them, not just keep them in games, to actually win games for them and get turnovers and potentially have to score in order for the Chargers to win games this year. When I look at the Colts, I think to myself, based on what I've read and heard from fans, from experts before the season started, the Colts have a much better defense than we saw on Sunday. So let's assume that defense plays even 50% better than it played on Sunday. Even if they're not fully playing up to their potential, that's a different ball game. Let's assume that Rivers is not throwing 2 picks a game, and he's throwing for 300 yards a game. Now, granted, I don't think he's going to throw the ball 46 times a game. I bet that would be more between 30 and 35 times in this week's upcoming game. But if their defense plays a little bit better, the pass protection was good. If you're not overly concerned that they lost Mack, they have Taylor, they have other running backs that they can put in there, and they have other running backs like Hines who performed well on Sunday. I feel like the Colts are a balanced team, and they can put points on the board. They hurt themselves this time. They didn't convert on 4th and short when they were on the goal line of the other team. They had a couple of scoring drives cut short by interceptions, but they were moving the ball up and down the field. So seeing that and seeing the potential there and knowing that the defense didn't play to the level that it's capable of playing to, I'm optimistic. And I think they're actually 3-point favorites against the Vikings.
The Vikings? Yeah, they are. And they're at home. Obviously, there's not really a home field advantage anymore, right? Like, yeah, so that doesn't really matter. But I think just being home, having some normalcy, you got embarrassed by the Jaguars. They're going to come out and they're going to try to punch the Vikings in the face. Now, if they can finish the fight or not, I don't know. It's going to be a great game. But this will be a different Colts team that we saw from last week. I guarantee it.
Yeah, I think the Colts are in this game, and I think they have a great chance to win this game. I'm less optimistic about the Chargers. I always, root with my heart. So I'm hopeful that they're going to be able to hang in there. And I like the fight in this team. And I think this team already realizes that they're going to have to be real scrappy to win games this year. And I think they've embraced that already. And so I do like that. There's kind of a junkyard dog mentality of the Chargers this year of like, hey, everyone thinks that this is a transition year for us. Everybody thinks that, we're not going to be doing much this year, especially after losing Derwin James. And I think they got that chip on their shoulder, but they're going to have to play their best game every week. And they didn't play their best game in week 1 and they barely escaped. So they're playing in a division that's going to show them no mercy. And it's going to be an interesting week. The Colts, I feel like they just need to clean a few things up and they're in business.
They're in business. Yep, I agree.
Well, before we wrap up this week, I want to talk a little bit about fantasy football because we are in our fantasy football league, and your team, the Great Wall, beat Corona.
You do know why they're called the Great Wall, correct? I mean, do you know why?
No, please explain.
Right. What town's got the best Chinese restaurant in it?
Enfield, Connecticut.
And what is it called?
The Great Wall.
There you go.
I like it. I like that name.
Look at my logo, man. I have a picture of it for my logo.
Well, the thumbnails on that league are so small, you can't see a damn thing on it. I've had so much problems changing it. But I digress there because your team beat Corona Cook by 50 points, just about 119.06 to 70.8 this past week. I, on the other hand, and my team's name is the Philip Rivers Fan Club, as you might understand. I was beaten by the Rusty VWs, and I lost by 1 point. I lost 91.74 to 90.7.
Oh man!
I lost by 1 point.
You lost by a point.
4 points, and that really, really hurt. Now, I did pick up this week. Who did I pick up for my team? I picked up Alan Lazard from Green Bay.
Okay.
Because he had a decent week last week, and I think we just saw the fact that Aaron Rodgers is going to be in beast mode. I have Pittman on my team, but he's questionable for this week, so we'll see what happens. Also have Phillip Rivers, because I always have Phillip Rivers on my team. And I picked up Mike Williams because his shoulder is healthy. And I actually have him and Keenan Allen. I think, and I'm just going to make a prediction here. I just feel by watching that game last week that Mike Williams could potentially have a more productive season in this offense than Keenan Allen.
All right.
And the
You're calling it.
I don't know. It's too small of a sample size, but here's what I saw the other day. Teams are always going to key on Keenan Allen, but they have a tough time getting him the ball. And Tyrod throws so many inaccurate passes that it's hard to get into a flow. What he throws a lot of, though, are high balls that you have to go up and get. And Mike Williams is that guy. And I just feel like he's already making Tyrod look good by some of the circus catches that he's making on these balls. And I feel like a guy who's able to go up and get slightly errant passes is going to have success in Tyrod Taylor's offense this year. I think there's going to be a lot of throwing the ball up there and Mike Williams going up and getting it. That's just off a 1 week sample size. So I picked him up because if that trend continues, I could see that happening. Now, the thing about Keenan Allen is I feel like he is arguably the best receiver in the NFL. So I think they'll figure out ways to get him the ball. And I think this offense is going to be so short yardage oriented that just running short routes for him, I mean, you could throw him the ball 20 times a game, just have him run 5-yard patterns and just because he's such a great receiver, like he'll move the chains for you. But it's just wild seeing this offense go from one that I feel was more dynamic under Rivers to one that is going to be a lot more conservative. If that was any indication last week, I think they'll probably have to find a happy medium, but it could be slow going for Keenan Allen this year if that offense stays the same. So we'll see.
I like it.
Last thing I want to mention about the games this week. So who do you think has a big game for the Colts this week? Who's your Colt to watch this week?
Other than Rivers, obviously, right?
Right.
Or can I? Yeah.
I mean, we're all going to be watching Rivers. And I did get my Phillip Rivers jersey came in this week. So I do have a new Colts Phillip Rivers jersey. I am decked out in Colts gear.
I want to pick of it.
Absolutely.
I'm going with Paris Campbell. I liked what I saw with him last week. I think he's explosive. He's athletic. You got to get him into the open field, and I think he can do some damage. So that's my pick. Paris Campbell is my pick to be the impact player for the Colts this week.
All right, and then I'm going to pick an impact player for the Chargers, and that player is going to be Josh Kelly. I think this is going to be his. I think this is the week where we see that he is going to be the power running back for the Chargers, and it's going to be him and Eckler as that 1-2 punch, that thunder and lightning punch that we're going to see from the Chargers. And I think if they do that correctly and they start feeding these guys, and that could generate some momentum for the offense this week. And I just think that when you see the energy that Kelly has, and just seeing him interviewed, watching him in Hard Knocks and everything else, when they drafted him, just the energy he had and that he's bringing to the team, like, I'm excited about this kid's approach. It is very energetic, very joyful, he's just hungry, man. And that's the way Austin Eckler is all the time. So you got two running backs there that are hungry. And I think, unfortunately for Justin Jackson, the more injuries that he suffers with, it's not going to be long before this kid takes his job, if the first week was any indication. But the Chargers have some fantastic running backs. It's just whether or not that line is going to be able to continue to open up holes for them. And we'll see, because this week is the challenge against the Chiefs. We're going to see how that goes. But it should be an exciting week of football. That, I think, is going to wrap up this episode of the Bolts and Colts podcast. So I didn't mention on the last episode, but we now do have a Facebook group for Bolts and Colts, which I will put a link to in the show notes. But I'm going to find the link right now just so that I can remind everybody of it. It is facebook.com/groups/Bolts and Colts. So you can go there. We're going to post the episodes every week in there, and then we will also, you can go in and leave comments and stuff like that. So yeah, week 1 of the NFL in the books, heading into week 2 now. As always, it's been a pleasure hanging out with you, Brian, and let's hope for good things for both the Bolts and the Colts this week.
Same here, Brian, man. I'll talk to you next week. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, buddy, take care.
You too.